Commander Nari Kim walked slowly through the bustling corridors of Starlight Station, the massive space habitat that served as the headquarters for the Galactic Council. Aliens of various species moved around her, some hurrying to meetings, others browsing the market stalls that lined the main thoroughfare. Nari kept her eyes down, drawing as little attention as possible to herself. The small device in her pocket gave a gentle vibration. She had entered the right sector. According to her intelligence, Judge Day presided over this jurisdiction, and his courtroom had seen an unusually high number of human traders convicted of minor offenses. Even more suspicious was the fact that 3 human merchant vessels had disappeared in this same region of space over the past 6 months. Nari paused at a marker indicating the boundaries of a restricted zone. She looked around casually, confirming that security cameras were capturing her movements, then deliberately stepped across the line. It took less than 2 minutes for the station's security drones to converge on her position. "Human female, you have entered a restricted area without authorization," announced the lead drone, its voice flat and mechanical. "Please present your identification and state your purpose." Nari feigned confusion. "I'm sorry? Is this restricted? I didn't see any signs." This was a lie, of course. The markers were clearly visible to anyone paying attention. "Multiple warnings are posted at standard intervals," the drone replied. "Please present identification." Nari fumbled in her pockets, producing a carefully crafted identity chip. It contained enough real information to pass basic scans but concealed her true status as an Earth Federation investigator. Scan complete. Name: Nari Kim. Occupation: independent. Trader. Origin: Earth, Korean Peninsula region. The drone paused. "You are ordered to accompany this security unit to judicial processing." "This is ridiculous," Nari protested, maintaining her cover. "I just got turned around. I'll leave immediately." "Resistance will be noted in your file," the drone stated, coldly. "Follow." Nari allowed herself to be escorted through the station to a sterile waiting area outside the courtrooms. Several other beings sat in the room, most looking nervous or resigned. A tall, multi-limbed alien in official robes approached. "Another human," it said, voice tinged with what sounded like disappointment. "I am Mr. Puck. I have been assigned as your legal representative." "I don't need a lawyer," Nari insisted. "This is all a misunderstanding." Mr. Puck's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Judge Day takes boundary violations very seriously. It would be unwise to appear without representation." Before Nari could respond, a chime sounded, and a door slid open. Case 4372, Nari Kim, human. Unauthorized presence in restricted zone. Report to courtroom 3 immediately. The courtroom was imposing, designed to intimidate. High ceilings, dark materials, and harsh lighting created an atmosphere of authority and power. Judge Day sat on an elevated platform, his massive form dwarfing his desk. His 6 eyes were arranged in a circular pattern around what Nari assumed was his face, though the lower half was covered by a breathing apparatus that emitted occasional hisses of processed air. "Another human," Judge Day said, his translator converting his natural speech into standard galactic. The translation couldn't hide the contempt in his tone. "Your kind seem to have difficulty understanding simple boundary markings." "Your Honor," Mr. Puck began, "my client—" "Was your navigation system malfunctioning?" Judge Day interrupted, addressing Nari directly. "That seems to be the most common excuse offered by humans." Nari stepped forward. "No, Your Honor, I simply misunderstood the markings. On Earth, restricted areas are marked differently. I'm still learning the galactic standards." Judge Day's skin rippled, a physical tell that Nari had studied and recognized as indicating disbelief or irritation. "Ignorance of the law is not a valid defense in this court. How long have you been traveling in council space?" 6 months, Your Honor." 6 months is more than adequate time to learn basic navigation protocols. Judge Day tapped something on his console. "Your record shows this is your first offense in this jurisdiction, but I see you've received warnings in 2 other sectors." This was also part of Nari's fabricated identity. The warnings were minor and had been arranged by Earth intelligence to create a believable pattern of a somewhat careless trader. "I try my best, Your Honor," Nari said, adding a slight tremble to her voice. Trading routes are complicated and human ships don't always have the latest mapping updates. Several aliens in the audience section made sounds that Nari interpreted as the equivalent of snickers or scoffs. Anti-human sentiment wasn't unusual in this part of space, where humans were relatively new arrivals to the interstellar community. Judge Day's upper eyes narrowed. "The standard fine for first-time boundary violations is 5,000 credits. Mr. Pak nodded, seeming relieved at the standard penalty. "However," Judge Day continued, "given the repeated nature of human violations in council space, I believe a stronger message is required." He paused for effect. "This court fines Nari Kim 50,000 credits, with payment due within 3 standard cycles." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Mr. Pak's limbs twitched in shock. "Your Honor," he protested, "that penalty is 10 times the standard. My client is a small independent trader. Such a sum would—" "The decision is final," Judge Day interrupted. "Perhaps when humans begin facing real consequences, they will learn to respect our boundaries." Next case. Nari stood still, absorbing the moment. This was exactly what she had expected, exactly what she had planned for. The judge's prejudice made him predictable. As she was escorted from the courtroom, Mr. Pak hurried after her, his long limbs allowing him to easily keep pace. "This is unjust," he said once they were in the corridor. "We should file an appeal immediately. The fine is clearly punitive and discriminatory." Nari shook her head. "No appeal. I'll pay it." Mr. Pak stopped, walking. "You can pay such an amount? But your records indicate—" "I have savings," Nari said simply. "I'd rather pay than extend this process." The alien studied her with all 4 of his eyes. "Most traders in your position would fight this decision." Nari shrugged. "I'm not most traders. How do I process the payment?" Looking confused but professional, Mr. Pak directed her to the financial office where fines could be paid. "You'll need to register in the system to make the transfer. I can assist if—" "I'll manage," Nari said firmly. "Thank you for your help." As the alien reluctantly left, Nari allowed herself a small smile. Access to the court's FINA Kiel system was exactly what she needed. Judge Day had just invited the wolf into his flock and he had no idea what was coming. Nari sat alone in her small rented quarters on level 12 of Starlight Station. The room was bare except for a bed, a desk, and basic furnishings typical for temporary residents. A soft blue light from the nearby nebula filtered through her single window, casting gentle shadows across the floor. She carefully placed her hand on the payment terminal she had been given to transfer her fine. The device was standard issue, a flat rectangular pad with a biometric scanner and interface controls. But what Judge Day and the court officials didn't know was that Nari had modified the inside of her right index finger with a nearly undetectable nanochip. "Let's see where your money really goes," she whispered as she pressed her finger to the scanner. The terminal beeped in recognition, and the screen displayed the standard payment interface. But when Nari's nanochip made contact, it quietly deployed a specialized program designed to track financial transfers while remaining undetected by the station's security systems. As the terminal processed her 50,000 credit payment, Nari's true mission began. She wasn't just a trader who had wandered into a restricted area. She was Commander Nari Kim, one of Earth Federation's top financial crime investigators, sent to uncover the truth behind missing human ships and suspected judicial corruption. The room's communication system chimed. Nari touched the screen to accept the incoming call, making sure the connection was secure and scrambled according to Earth intelligence protocols. "Commander, report status," came the voice of Captain Tay. He was her direct superior, currently stationed on a small Earth vessel hiding in an asteroid field 3 light hours from the station. "Phase 1 complete," Nari replied. Judge Day reacted exactly as expected. The fine was 10 times the standard amount, just like the other human traders reported. "Were you able to access their financial network?" Nari nodded, though she knew the audio-only connection wouldn't convey this. Yes. My tracking program is following the money now. The terminal they provided has a direct link to their treasury system. On her personal tablet, hidden from the room's surveillance systems by a signal dampening field, Nari watched as her program mapped the flow of credits. The fine she had just paid entered the main judicial account, but within minutes an automatic process divided the sum. 60% remained in the official account, but 40% was immediately transferred to a numbered account with no name attached. I have something, she said, her voice barely containing her excitement. There's an automatic skimming program in their system. A large portion of my fine was just diverted. Captain Tay's voice sharpened with interest. Can you trace where it went? Working on it now. Nari's fingers flew across her tablet, instructing her program to follow the diverted credits through the financial network. The money jumped through 3 different accounts in quick succession, clearly designed to obscure the trail. They're using a standard laundering pattern, she explained. Triple jump protocol with false identification markers. Amateur stuff. Really. They're not expecting anyone to be watching. After several minutes of intense concentration, Nari smiled as her program broke through the final layer of protection. Got it, she announced. The money ends up in an account registered to a shipping company called Stellar Freight Enterprises. But there's something odd about it. The company doesn't appear to have any actual ships registered in the council database. A shell company, Captain Tay concluded. Can you find any connection to the missing merchant vessels? Nari instructed her program to cross-reference the account activity with the known disappearance dates of the 3 human ships. The tablet processed the request and soon displayed a clear correlation. This is it, she said, her voice now serious. Large deposits were made to this account within hours of each disappearance. The amounts vary, but they're substantial, much larger than my fine. Salvage profits, Captain Tay suggested. Or payment for target information, Nari added. Judge Day might be identifying valuable human ships and passing the information to pirates. The blue light from the nebula suddenly dimmed as a large vessel passed by the station, momentarily blocking the view. Nari glanced up, then returned to her work. I need to dig deeper, she continued. There must be communications between the judge and whoever is attacking our ships. If I can find those, we'll have enough evidence for the Council Security Force to act. Be careful, Commander, Captain Tay warned. Judge Day has considerable influence in that sector. If he suspects you're investigating him, he won't, Nari assured him. He sees what he expects to see, just another human traitor who doesn't understand galactic law. His prejudice blinds him. After ending the communication, Nari stood up and stretched. She had been hunched over her devices for hours. A glance at the station's time display told her it was well into the night cycle. Most of the station's residents would be resting now. Perfect timing for her next move. She changed into a gray maintenance uniform she had smuggled aboard. The outfit was almost identical to those worn by the station's cleaning staff, most of whom were members of smaller, less influential species. These workers were practically invisible to officials like Judge Day. Nari adjusted the uniform's identification badge, which would now display altered information showing her as a maintenance worker assigned to the judicial sector. The forgery was excellent, created by Earth Intelligence's best technical specialists. Before leaving her quarters, she placed a small device under her tongue. If stopped and questioned, this voice modulator would subtly alter her speech patterns to match those of the Miran species, many of whom worked in station maintenance. The corridors were quiet as Nari made her way toward the judicial offices. She passed a few night shift workers and security drones, but none paid her any special attention. The maintenance badge did its job, marking her as unimportant and routine. When she reached the service entrance to the judicial sector, Nari swiped her forged badge. The door slid open with a soft hiss. She grabbed a cleaning cart from a nearby storage area and pushed it ahead of her, completing her disguise. Judge Day's private office was located at the end of a long corridor. 2 security drones hovered outside, their sensors constantly scanning the area. Nari approached confidently, keeping her head slightly down as a subordinate worker would. Scheduled cleaning, she said as she neared the drones. Her voice modulator gave her words the slight musical quality typical of Miran's speech. One drone moved forward, scanning her badge. No cleaning services scheduled during night cycle. Nari feigned confusion. New protocol from Central Services. Judge Day filed complaint about day cleaning disturbing his work. Check your updates. The drones paused, communicating with each other via wireless signals. This was the risky part. If they thoroughly checked her story with Central Services, her cover would be blown. But as she had hoped, the drones were programmed for efficiency rather than thoroughness when it came to routine matters. After a brief hesitation, they moved aside. Proceed. Complete cleaning quickly, one drone instructed. Thank you, Nari said, pushing her cart into the office. Once inside, she quickly located Judge Day's private terminal. This would contain the evidence she needed: communications, financial records, and hopefully information about the next targeted ship. As she prepared to access the terminal, Nari reflected on the irony of her situation. Judge Day had fined her because he thought she was just another careless human. In reality, he had inadvertently granted the Earth Federation's best financial investigator direct access to his corrupt operation. The terminal lit up as she applied her specialized access tools. Now the real work would begin. Nari worked quickly inside Judge Day's office. Her fingers moved with practiced precision across the terminal's interface. Years of training in electronic infiltration made this almost second nature to her, though alien systems always presented unique challenges. Come on, she whispered, as the terminal processed her specialized access codes. The judge's private files were protected by multiple security layers, but Nari had prepared for this. A soft beep indicated success. The screen changed to display Judge Day's personal database. Nari immediately copied the files to a small data crystal hidden in her maintenance uniform. She would analyze everything in detail later, but for now she needed to find specific information about upcoming ship movements. A noise in the corridor outside made her freeze. She quickly switched the terminal display to a maintenance menu and grabbed her cleaning tools just as the door slid open. An alien with pale blue skin and forearms entered. He wore the insignia of a judicial assistant. His eyes widened slightly at seeing someone in the judge's office. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his translator giving his words a sharp edge. Nari kept her head down in the submissive posture, typical of maintenance workers. "Cleaning, sir. Judge ordered special service." The assistant looked suspicious. "At this hour? The judge said nothing to me about this." "System shows request," Nari said, keeping her sentences short as a Miran. Worker would. "I just follow orders." The assistant stepped closer, examining her face. "You look different for a Miran." Nari's heart beat faster, but she maintained her calm exterior. "Mixed heritage. Father from outer colonies." She gestured to her cleaning cart. "Almost finished. Very thorough, as requested." After a tense moment, the assistant nodded. "Be quick about it and make sure you clean under the viewing platform. The judge is very particular about that area." "Yes, sir." "Thank you, sir." The assistant gave her one last look before leaving. Nari released a quiet breath. That had been close, too close. She needed to finish quickly now. Returning to the terminal, she searched specifically for information about human vessels scheduled to enter this sector. It took only moments to find what she was looking for: a file containing detailed movement, plans for all ships expected in the next 2 weeks. One entry was highlighted in the judge's personal notation system: Research Vessel Sunlight, Earth Science Directorate, ETA 3 days, crew 200, cargo, research equipment, and rare mineral samples from Procyon system. Nari's blood ran cold. The Sunlight was one of Earth's most advanced research ships. Its mineral samples alone would be worth millions of credits on the black market, and 200 lives would be at risk. She quickly searched for communications related to the Sunlight and found a message sent from Judge Day to an unnamed recipient just hours earlier. Large prize entering sector at coordinates 3782-105. Standard. Security escort. Valuable cargo and research data. The usual arrangement applies. Confirm. The reply was brief. Confirmed. Payment upon completion. This was it. proof that the judge was working with pirates to target human ships. Nari copied these messages specifically to a separate secure partition in her data crystal. She had just finished and was returning the terminal to its standby mode when the room's lighting suddenly changed from standard to red alert. Security. Breach detected in judicial sector, announced the station's AI system. All security personnel report to level 4. All non-security personnel return to quarters immediately. Had she triggered some hidden alarm? Nari couldn't be sure, but she couldn't risk being found here. She quickly gathered her cleaning supplies and pushed her cart toward the door. When it opened, she saw security drones rushing past in the corridor. Keeping her head down, she joined the flow of maintenance workers and other staff evacuating the area as ordered. No one paid particular attention to her, just another worker following emergency protocols. Once she reached a safe distance from the judicial sector, Nari slipped away from the crowd and made her way through service corridors back to her quarters. She needed to analyze the data and contact Captain Tay immediately. The next morning, Nari sat in a small cafe in the station's commercial sector. She sipped a beverage that approximated Earth coffee while watching the crowds pass by. She had chosen a table with a clear view of the judicial building's main entrance. Right on schedule, Judge Day emerged, flanked by 2 security drones. His massive form moved with surprising grace as he made his way across the plaza. Several aliens bowed or stepped aside respectfully as he passed. Nari's communication implant vibrated gently against her inner ear. She touched it discreetly. "Report. Status," came Captain Tay's voice. "I have confirmation," Nari said quietly, her lips barely moving. "Judge Day is definitely working with pirates. They're targeting the research vessel Sunlight, scheduled to arrive in 2 days." "That matches our intelligence," Captain Tay replied. "The Council Security Force has been informed, but they won't act without more evidence. They're reluctant to move against a judge based on allegations from Earth." Nari wasn't surprised. Human influence in the Galactic Council was still limited. Many older species viewed Earth as an upstart world that had achieved faster-than-light travel too quickly. "I have communications proving his involvement," she said, "but we need to connect him directly to the pirate vessel. We've identified a suspect ship," Captain Tay informed her. "A converted freighter called the Nightshade. It appears and disappears from long-range scans, but its movement pattern matches the locations of the previous attacks." Nari noticed Judge Day had stopped to speak with another alien across the plaza. This one was thin, with dark green skin that seemed to shimmer in the station's artificial light. Something about their interaction caught her attention. It seemed furtive, almost secretive. "I may have a new lead," she told Captain Tay. "The judge is meeting someone now. I'll try to identify them." She discreetly activated the optical enhancement in her contact lenses, zooming in on the pair. The green alien handed something small to Judge Day, who quickly tucked it into his robes. "I need to follow that green alien," Nari decided. "He just passed something to the judge." "Be careful," Captain Tay warned. "Your check-in with Judge Day is scheduled for this afternoon. Missing it would raise suspicions." "I'll be there," Nari promised. She finished her drink and stood up, keeping a careful distance as she followed the green alien through the crowded plaza. He moved quickly, occasionally glancing over his shoulder as if checking for pursuers. Eventually, he entered a less populated area of the station, where businesses catered to crews of cargo ships. The lighting was dimmer here and the corridors narrower. Nari had to hang back further to avoid detection. The alien stopped at a doorway marked Interstellar Communications and entered after looking around once more. Nari waited a few moments before approaching. A sign on the door indicated the business offered private communication services for ship crews, a common enough establishment, but perfect for sending messages that wouldn't be logged in the station's main communication system. She couldn't follow him inside without risking discovery. Instead, she noted the location and time, then made her way to another important meeting, one that would require all her acting skills. "Your fine has been processed," Judge Day said, as Nari stood before him for her mandatory check-in. His 6 eyes studied her with what seemed like mild surprise. Most humans make a scene about such penalties, or flee the station immediately. I need to complete my business here, Nari replied simply. The judge's skin rippled slightly. And what business might that be? Your trader profile lists general goods, but specifies no particular contracts in this sector. This was dangerous territory. The judge was asking questions beyond the scope of a routine check-in. I'm exploring new opportunities, Nari said. The Procyon system has minerals that are valuable on Earth. One of Judge Day's upper eyes twitched noticeably. Procyon? Interesting choice. Many traders find that route hazardous. I've heard the stories about missing ships, Nari acknowledged. But good profits require some risk. Judge Day leaned forward slightly. Indeed, risk and reward are the foundation of commerce. Though I wonder if a small independent trader has the resources for such an ambitious venture. I manage, Nari said, with a slight shrug. The judge studied her for a moment longer. See that you stay within authorized areas for the remainder of your stay, Ms. Kim. Our court doesn't look kindly on repeat offenders. As Nari left the judicial building, she couldn't shake the feeling that Judge Day was growing suspicious. His questions about Procyon, the very system the sunlight was returning from, seemed too pointed to be coincidental. She needed to accelerate her investigation. The lives of 200 researchers depended on it. Nari sat cross-legged on the floor of her quarters, surrounded by holographic displays showing data streams and connection maps. The information she had collected from Judge Day's terminal illuminated the small room with a soft blue glow. She had been analyzing the files for hours, searching for the final connection that would prove beyond doubt that the judge was working with pirates. This has to be here somewhere, she muttered, moving her hands through the data displays to reorganize the information. Her eyes were tired, but she couldn't stop now. The research vessel Sunlight would arrive in less than 24 hours. Her communication implant vibrated gently. Commander Kim, situation update, came Captain Tay's voice. I've traced the money trail completely, Nari replied, touching her ear to activate her microphone. Every fine Judge Day collects from humans is split, with 40% eventually reaching accounts linked to a ship called the Nightshade. I've confirmed this vessel was in the vicinity during all 3 previous disappearances. The Council, security force is still reluctant to act, Captain Tay said, frustration evident in his voice. They claim the evidence is circumstantial. Without proof of direct communication between Judge Day and the Nightshade's captain, they won't move against a sitting judge. Nari frowned. I'm still working on that part. The judge is careful. He uses multiple intermediaries for communication. A particular data node caught her attention. A repeating pattern of encrypted transmissions sent from the communications facility she had tracked the green alien to yesterday. She highlighted it, expanding the information. Wait, she said suddenly. I think I found something. There's an unusual communication pattern between that private messaging center and a location just outside the station's sensor range. The times match perfectly with when the judge met with his green-skinned contact. She quickly applied a decryption algorithm she had used successfully on previous cases. The computer worked for several minutes before the messages began to appear, in readable form. Target confirmed. Research vessel Sunlight carries Grade A quantum processors and iridium samples. Estimated value 12 million credits. Security, standard Earth patrol escort, likely 2 vessels. The response message was equally damning. Will intercept at coordinates provided. Ready 4 boarding teams. Jam communications on frequencies provided. Payment as discussed. Captain, Nari said urgently, I have the proof we need. Direct communications about the planned attack on the Sunlight, with tactical details that could only have come from someone with judicial access to ship manifests and security protocols. Can you trace it directly to Judge Day? Captain Tay asked. The messages are sent by a third party, but... Nari stopped as she noticed something important. The encryption key. It's the same one used in Judge Day's personal files. He created the encryption himself. That might be enough, Captain Tay said. I'll contact Council Security again, but we need a backup plan. The Sunlight is still on course to arrive tomorrow. Nari began copying the evidence to a secure data crystal. I'll take this directly to the Council Security headquarters if necessary. They can't ignore physical evidence. A sudden loud knock on her door made her freeze. She quickly closed the holographic displays and hid the data crystal in a hidden pocket of her clothing. "Who is it?" she called, moving toward the door. "Station security," came the reply. "Open immediately." Nari took a deep breath and opened the door. Two security officers stood outside, their uniforms bearing the insignia of the station's authority. Behind them hovered a security drone, its sensors clearly focused on her. "Nari Kim?" one officer asked, a tall alien with gray skin and compound eyes. "Yes, that's me. Judge Day has ordered your immediate appearance for questioning regarding a probation violation." Nari kept her expression neutral despite her racing heart. "Violation? What violation?" "I've followed all restrictions. The judge has evidence you accessed restricted networks," the officer stated. "This is a serious offense." Nari glanced at her communication implant, knowing Captain Tay could hear everything. This was bad. If Judge Day had discovered her intrusion into his terminal, he might also know her true identity. "I need to gather my identification," she said calmly. "You will come immediately," the officer insisted. "Your identification has already been verified." With no choice that wouldn't blow her cover completely, Nari allowed herself to be escorted from her quarters. As they moved through the corridors, she carefully observed their route and the security protocols at each junction. If she needed to escape, this information would be crucial. "Commander," came Captain Tay's whispered voice through her implant. "We're deploying emergency protocols. Earth intelligence agents on the station have been activated. Stand by for extraction if necessary." Nari couldn't respond without alerting the officers, but she blinked twice, which would be picked up by her implant sensors as an acknowledgement. They arrived at the judicial building and were escorted directly to a private hearing room rather than the main courtroom. This was concerning. Private hearings meant no public record and no witnesses. Judge Day was already present, his massive form seeming even larger in the small room. Only one other individual was there, the green-skinned alien she had followed the previous day. "Ms. Kim," Judge Day said, his translator giving his voice a cold, mechanical quality, "you have violated the terms of your probation by accessing restricted systems." "I don't understand the accusation," Nari replied, maintaining her confused traitor persona. "I've done nothing wrong." The judge made a gesture and the green alien stepped forward, activating a display screen. It showed security footage of Nari in the maintenance uniform, entering the judicial sector the night she had infiltrated the judge's office. "Our security systems captured your image," Judge Day said. "Despite your disguise, facial recognition identified you with 97% certainty." Nari's mind raced. She hadn't anticipated the station having such advanced recognition software. This complicated things significantly. "There must be a mistake," she insisted. "That's not me. The evidence is clear," Judge Day continued. "You entered a restricted area using falsified credentials and accessed sensitive systems. The penalty for such actions is immediate detention pending full investigation." The green alien smiled slightly, revealing pointed teeth. "We also found this hidden in your quarters." He held up a small device, a backup transmitter Nari had kept in case her primary communication systems failed. This was getting worse by the moment. If they had searched her quarters thoroughly, they might have found other evidence of her true mission. Judge Day leaned forward, his 6 eyes fixing on her intently. "Who are you really, Ms. Kim? No simple traitor carries advanced encryption technology or knows how to bypass security systems." Before Nari could answer, the room's lighting suddenly dimmed and then returned to normal, a momentary power fluctuation that most would ignore. But Nari recognized it as a signal from Earth intelligence. Her extraction team was in position. "I want to speak to a council representative," Nari said firmly, playing for time. "I have rights under galactic law." "Rights?" Judge Day's skin rippled, in what Nari had come to recognize as amusement. "You forfeited those when you chose to spy on a council judge. Now I will ask you once more. Who sent you?" As if in answer, Nari's data crystal began to vibrate in her hidden pocket. The extraction team had remotely activated it, signaling that they were ready to move. She needed to create a distraction. "You're right," she said suddenly. "I'm not just a traitor. I was sent to investigate corruption in this sector." Judge Day's eyes widened slightly. "By whom?" "By people who know about the missing human ships," Nari replied, her voice growing stronger. "People who know about your deals with the Nightshade." The judge's skin changed color rapidly, a sign of alarm. "You know nothing," he hissed. "I know enough," Nari said, taking a step toward him. "And soon, so will the entire council." The green alien moved quickly toward her, reaching for what appeared to be a weapon. But before he could draw it, the room's doors slid open and the lights went out completely. The courtroom was packed with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Word had spread quickly throughout Starlight Station about the special hearing involving a human traitor and the respected Judge Day. At the center of the room, Nari stood calmly, her hands resting at her sides. She looked different today. Her posture straight and confident, without the submissive stance she had adopted in previous appearances. Judge Day sat on his elevated platform, his 6 eyes scanning the crowded room. Several high-ranking council representatives sat in a special section, their ornate robes marking their important status. The judge seemed pleased by their presence, clearly expecting to make an example of the human before such distinguished witnesses. "This court calls to order the hearing of Nari Kim, human traitor, on charges of infiltrating restricted areas, theft of confidential information, and violation of probation terms," Judge Day announced, his translator broadcasting his words throughout the chamber. Nari noticed several humans scattered throughout the audience, station workers, traders, and a few she recognized as disguised Earth intelligence operatives. They had moved into position after her extraction from the private hearing room the day before. That extraction had been perfectly executed, a complete power outage followed by smoke canisters and the swift appearance of 4 operatives who had overwhelmed the judge's security. They had taken Nari to a safe location within the station, where she had coordinated with Captain Tay to prepare for this moment. "Before these proceedings begin," Judge Day continued, "I must inform the court that this human was caught attempting to access judicial records. This represents a serious breach of council security protocols." Nari waited until he finished speaking. When she responded, her voice was clear and strong, very different from her previous meek appearances. "I request permission to address these charges directly, Your Honor." Judge Day's skin rippled with what appeared to be amusement. "The human wishes to speak. Very well. Perhaps you would like to explain why you were found in my private office, disguised as maintenance staff?" "I would be happy to explain everything," Nari replied. She turned slightly to address the council representatives as well as the judge. "But first, I believe formalities are in order." She reached into her pocket and removed a small identification card, which projected a holographic badge into the air above it. The insignia of Earth Federation's Special Investigations Division rotated slowly, causing murmurs to spread through the courtroom. "I am Commander Nari Kim of Earth Federation Intelligence, operating under Council Security Protocol 27B, which authorizes undercover operations when there is substantial evidence of crimes against interstellar commerce." Judge Day's multiple eyes blinked rapidly. "This is absurd. No such operation was authorized by this court." One of the council representatives, a tall, slender alien with shimmering silver skin, leaned forward. "Protocol 27B does not require authorization from the local judiciary, Judge Day. It requires only approval from the Council Security Division, which I represent. Please continue, Commander Kim." Nari nodded respectfully to the representative. 3 human vessels have disappeared in this sector over the past 6 months. The most recent, the merchant ship Horizon, vanished just 3 weeks ago with 27 crew members. No distress calls were sent. No debris was found. They simply disappeared. She activated a small device that projected a star chart showing the locations of the disappearances. Each vessel vanished in territory under the judicial authority of Judge Day. shortly after receiving unusually large fines for minor infractions. The judge's skin was now shifting between several colors. This proves nothing. Space is dangerous. Ships disappear. Perhaps human vessels are simply not as well built as those of more established species. A reasonable hypothesis, Nari agreed calmly. Except for one problem. She touched her device again, and the display changed to show a series of financial records. 40% of every fine collected from human vessels in this jurisdiction is automatically diverted through a series of accounts, eventually reaching this one. The display highlighted a particular account number. This account belongs to Stellar Freight Enterprises, a company that exists only on financial records. It has no ships, no offices, and no employees. But it does have one interesting feature. She paused, looking directly at Judge Day. It makes regular payments to the captain of a vessel called the Nightshade. The silver-skinned council representative stood up. The Nightshade is suspected in multiple piracy incidents throughout this sector. If you have evidence connecting Judge Day to this vessel— I do, Nari interrupted. She produced the data crystal she had prepared. This contains communications between Judge Day and the Nightshade's captain, arranging the intercept and capture of human vessels after the judge provided detailed information about their cargo, crew, and security measures. Judge Day slammed his upper limbs against his desk. These are forgeries. This human is attempting to undermine council authority with these false accusations. The evidence has already been verified by council security. Experts, said another representative, his voice deep and resonant. The encryption keys used in these communications match those found in your personal files, Judge Day. Nari stepped forward. But the most damning evidence concerns your next target. The research vessel Sunlight, carrying 200 Earth scientists, was scheduled to arrive in this sector today. Gasps and murmurs filled the courtroom. Was scheduled? Judge Day asked, suddenly cautious. Yes, Nari confirmed. After discovering your plans, we rerouted the Sunlight. And when the Nightshade arrived at the coordinates you provided, they found not a research vessel, but 3 Earth Federation patrol ships waiting for them. The courtroom erupted in noise. The council representatives conferred hurriedly among themselves. Judge Day's skin had settled into a dull gray color, a sign of fear or defeat, Nari had learned. The Nightshade has been captured, she continued once the noise subsided. Its captain has already confirmed your involvement in exchange for leniency. The piracy operation is over. Nari allowed herself a small smile. You made it easy, Judge. Your prejudice blinded you. When you saw a human woman standing before your court, you saw only what you expected to see, someone beneath your notice, someone you could dismiss and exploit. She turned to address the entire courtroom. But humanity is not to be underestimated. We may be newcomers to the galactic community, but we bring with us thousands of years of experience dealing with those who abuse power. We recognize injustice when we see it, and we do not tolerate it, not on Earth and not among the stars. The silver-skinned representative moved to the center of the room. Judge Day, based on the evidence presented and verified by council security, you are hereby relieved of your duties pending a full investigation. Security officers will escort you to detention. As security drones moved toward the judge's platform, he suddenly reached beneath his robes. This will not stand, he shouted, pulling out a small weapon. Before he could aim it, Nari moved with the quick reflexes of her years of training. She leaped onto the platform and struck the judge's arm, sending the weapon flying across the room. Security drones quickly surrounded them, restraining the judge with energy restraints. You're just a human, Judge Day said in disbelief as he was led away. How could you possibly? That was your mistake all along, Nari replied quietly, believing that just a human wasn't a threat. In the days that followed, the full extent of Judge Day's corruption was revealed. Dozens of officials were implicated in the scheme, targeting not only human vessels but ships from other newcomer species as well. The station buzzed with the news, and Nari found herself receiving respectful nods from aliens who had previously ignored her. 6 weeks later, she stood in the Grand Council chamber, feeling slightly uncomfortable in her formal Earth Federation uniform. The room was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. The head of the council, An ancient being with features weathered by centuries of life addressed the assembly. In recognition of Commander Nari Kim's service to interstellar justice and her expertise in financial crimes, the Council hereby establishes a new Interspecies Justice Commission, with Commander Kim as its first director. As applause filled the chamber, Nari thought about how Judge Day's prejudice had been his downfall. He had seen her as just a human woman, not worth his respect or attention. That blindness had allowed her to dismantle his entire operation. Now, as she stepped forward to accept her new position, she knew that humans had earned a new level of respect in the galaxy, and she would make sure that justice would be blind to species, not blinded by prejudice. The end.